My name is Barb Cook. I was the inaugural secretary of the Deception Bay Neighbourhood Centre. It was quite a battle to get this building and the philosophy working. How did it come about? Well, prior to Wayne Goss and the Labor government being elected in 1989, many groups within the Bay were providing support to the community. There was no connection between these groups. They were all doing their own little bit. Usually through schools or the Girl Guides or the churches. So basically we came about as a collective primarily because there was lots of bad press about Deception Bay community. It was undesirable to live or to work within this community. There was very little government funding coming into the community, poor servicing of buses, and there was no jobs in the community. There was no industrial estates. So through the group, we thought, okay, what can we do? So how did we do it? First of all, we had a local community meeting near the Deception Bay Primary School. The community meeting voiced our concerns. What have we got here? We seem to be just left in this little pit and ignored by many and talked about. So the only way we can have change is be the change ourselves. Let's do it. So we did. We created a sense of bonding within this group. We needed to change the perception and give hope to the very youthful population which we had at the time, and to our most vulnerable. We are particularly good at looking after each other in this community. We are different because we have had such rubbish thrown at us for many, many years. We have had to have the ability to look after each other. We're not in each other's pockets, but we just care for each other. We hate people coming in and telling us what to do. We like to make those solutions ourselves. We looked at how our existing neighbourhood centres are operating. So our little committee, we went off and had a look at sandbags down at Sandgate. Then we went up to Caboolture, how it's been run, and they all operate differently. And the reason for that is because it reflects what the community wants and needs. No neighbourhood centre will ever be the same because it depends what the community wants. We had to be very much a hands-on committee because we wanted it feeling and maintained and owned by the community. We had monthly liaison meetings with all community groups and churches to become cohesive, as many programs often helped the same. There was a lot of overlap, a lot of duplication. So we thought, let's make it easier so the most vulnerable didn't have to repeat their story. Let's support them. Let's build them. We soon learnt that the most important part was we needed family support workers. We needed budgetary help. We did have access to emergency housing, and the previous welfare council that was the precursor to this, we had emergency housing and we had a women's shelter here in the Bay. We also were linked to Arcady House at Morayfield, which was a youth shelter. But there was a change in direction within the Department of Housing where we lost all those houses. Can you imagine what we would do today if we had access to emergency housing? We looked at job search training, preparing especially women returning to the workforce and with the disadvantaged youth under 20. Those youth who needed access to understanding, compassion and people who can build them up. And we used local trainers and local support people and mentors. And very often they didn't complete the course because they did so well with these mentors and preceptors that they actually gained employment before they finished the course. So success. We auspiced the 60 and Better program, which is still running at the PCYC, for people of the older years becoming motivated and engaged with their community. We auspiced the community youth programs. We got the first skate bowl down there. So that is awesome when you're trying to convince people within councils this is what we want. And it was not part of their vision, but we got it. programs to the Bay that was funded and supported, like job search training, domestic violence resource centre was set up at Caboolture, which we were involved in as well. Assistance groups came in and chose to work beside and respect Bay views. We had the First Nations people here involved as well, some of the elders. And we had the Samoan group, Hanneman Hunt. Okay. Oh, what an awesome group that is for the Bay. The role of the Neighbourhood Centre in the community, basically we are people's space. We hold their space. It's not about creating a job for people. It's not creating dependence of the community on this organisations, because that was one of the biggest fears that we learnt from other organisations, well, that people will always expect to have help from within the organisation. They really haven't learnt or been assisted to budget or to negotiate power bills and stuff like that. However, we gave them the skills to be able to do that for themselves by the people we employed here, the people who were in the front office, the way they approached the people. We made sure that we had people who could do all that and more for our community. There was never any of this starting late because I've got things to do for myself. It was always what the community needed first. It was multicultural. We had community capacity and building and meeting space, interest groups, like our community garden group, which I'm associated with, those with spectrum disorders, Indigenous and multicultural groups. It's mutual respect for each other, safety and a haven, as some people will call it, and it's a resource for information and support, like our recent addition for the RSPCA for vet checks. Their fur babies are important to them too, so we've got to understand and support them. We had income earning projects like training courses, classes like first aid, antenatal classes. We had that all running here. We had emergency relief funds, and it was not about keeping the dollars from the community when we got funding. It was making sure that we spent it wisely and frugally, meeting the needs of the community. I've put down here the 5 pillars of community development to develop a fair, inclusive society with positive change within self, others and a community, setting by a common vision, clear objectives, connecting and building, shared responsibility, which is still keeping engaged with the community, which is important for our committee to keep on doing. Personal value, for me, aspect, that they feel not judged, they feel comfortable with the centre. Progress, that we have clear goals and objectives that may not be department-led but community-led, and so we need to do that. Basically, ongoing is being prepared for changes in a new way of doing business, and we learnt that during COVID ways when we had to do Zoom meetings. But you know what? We were the only centre that remained open for the most vulnerable. We had the Grey Army connected. There was about 4 or 5 of us involved in being Grey Army to go out there and support our community of the most vulnerable. We weren't called upon much, but we were there, and that came from within the community. So our neighbourhood centre is important, valuable and special for absolutely everything within this bay.